mentioned New Year's Eve at the start. New Year's Eve is a very strange day for me, because as well as being New Year's Eve, it's also my birthday. And when you have a birthday on New Year's Eve, it doesn't matter how many of your friends, relatives, loved ones come to celebrate your birthday with you. There always comes a moment, just before midnight, where everyone that you know and love and care about gets together in a room and counts down to when it's not your birthday. New Year's Eve 2013, I went to a house party in Filton, and I stupidly decided that I was going to walk there from my house, which at the time was in Bedminster. Now that walk takes about an hour and 45 minutes. And before I set off, I sent a text to the host of the party saying I'm on my way. Now what I didn't know is that this New Year's Eve party was actually a surprise birthday party for me. And when I sent that text saying I'm on my way, they all got in position.
Will you please put your hands together? Welcome to the stage, Mr. Martin Pilgrim!
Hello everyone. Hey! How are we doing? Yeah, good. Thank you so much for coming, first of all. As Becky mentioned, we are filming this tonight. I don't want to put pressure on you as an audience. Like, please be honest with your laughter. Like, only laugh if you find something funny. But I will say, we do have one shot at this. I can't afford this room again. So only laugh at something if you find it funny, but for the sake of my career, and for the sake of my bank balance, please find everything funny. Now that we've reached an agreement, back on New Year's Eve of last year, I told myself that 2017 was going to be the year that I started to succeed. Now it's September, and so far 2017 has been the year that I rediscovered Vimto. Been drinking a lot of Vimto recently. I started to drink Vimto as a way to stop drinking Lemsip. Because last year, I managed to get addicted to Lemsip. Which sounds quite funny until you read the ingredients on a packet of Lemsip and realise that what I was actually addicted to was several types of painkillers. What I'd do is I'd come home from work and I'd lie in bed and I'd drink Lemsip through a bendy straw. And I don't think there can be a better image for the loss of childhood innocence than a grown man lying in bed drinking liquid painkillers through a bendy straw. Because the bendy straw is so childlike and innocent, and the painkillers are so grown up, and that collision of childhood and adulthood just makes me really sad. It's like getting divorced on a swing. I even went as far as getting a kettle for my bedroom, which is the Lemsip equivalent of growing a coke nail. I knew I had a problem though. I knew I had a problem because I came home one night drunk and I went to bed without having Lemsip. And that night I had a dream where birds were flying around my head and they were singing, "How much Lem would a Lemsip sip if a Lemsip could sip Lem?" And the answer to that question is to sort your life out. So I started to drink Vimto instead, hot Vimto. Right, I figure I'm safe with Vimto, partly because it isn't full of painkillers, and and partly because how much vim would a vimto toe if a vimto could toe vim? Doesn't really sound like something a bird would say. I was surprised you could still get Vimto. Vimto's been around for ages. Like, you could drink Vimto whilst watching the moon landing, and now you can drink Vimto whilst watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And in both cases, an intelligent observer will suspect the whole thing is fake. Because if the Kardashians are real, how come they don't move in the wind? I had this sort of crisis of self-confidence back on New Year's Eve, because 2016 was a very low-achieving year for me. I achieved so little in 2016 that if I'd sent out a Christmas newsletter at the end of the year, making a Christmas newsletter would have been mentioned in it. I barely left the house at all in 2016, which is okay, I think, because I hate the outdoors. It's the worst of all the doors. We shouldn't go out there, it's not safe. Like, do you remember when JFK got assassinated in his own house? No, you don't, because it happened outside. We shouldn't go out there. There's a reason that our ancestors are called cavemen. Not field men. Or beach men. We're descended from the people who had the good sense to find a dark hole and stay there. And every time you go outside for a barbecue, or to see what that noise was, you are insulting their memory. Never invite me to a barbecue, by the way. Inviting me to a barbecue is like saying, hey Martin, you know how you're terrified of social interaction? Well, imagine that, but also everything's on fire. 2016 was a bad year for me. You know it's been a bad year when David Bowie has died more times than you've had sex. You know it's been a bad year when Prince has died more times than you've had sex. You know it's been a bad year when Donald Trump has died the same number of times. I like that joke, but it does mean I'm now one of the few people in the world with a vested interest in keeping Donald Trump alive. I'm going through something of a dry spell at the moment. I've got a tip for you though if you're in a similar situation to me. What I like to do is I sit on my arm until it goes numb. And then I can pretend that I can't get a girlfriend because I've got one arm. My friend told me I shouldn't do that joke, because it's sort of offensive, and I said I know it is, but sometimes when I say it, people applaud. And he said, yeah, but the people who are going to be offended aren't going to be... I've had 3 relationships in my life. The first one lasted 11 months, the second one lasted 7 months, and the third one lasted 5 months. Now some of you might be thinking that shows I'm getting worse at relationships. I would argue that it shows I'm getting more efficient. I've learned to streamline the disappointment. My last girlfriend broke up with me because she said that I couldn't express my feelings. And she's absolutely right, I'm very emotionally repressed. I tend to bottle things up. got on a brave face. Like if I'd been in the Beatles, that song would have been called While My Guitar Gently Acts Like Everything's Fine. I've always struggled with this though. I've never been able to say I love you to someone in a romantic sense. I've tried, but I've never succeeded. My first attempt was when I was 18. It was my 18th birthday. My first girlfriend came to my birthday party. She gave me a birthday present, and then she got picked up by her dad. I got picked up by my dad. I was sitting in the back of my dad's car. I was very drunk, and I opened the present that she'd got me, and I saw that she bought me Guitar Hero 3 for the PS2. Yeah. And I was overwhelmed with gratitude. So I got out my Nokia 3310 and I text her the words "I love you." Now, life is not a fairy tale, but I think the first time you say "I love you" to someone in a romantic context, there are some ground rules that you should try and stick to. First of all, the person should actually be there. You should be holding them, not a 3/4 size plastic replica of a guitar. And if you must do it in writing, love should at least be spelled with 4 letters, not 3. I waited 5 years to try and say I love you again. I was 23. I was in bed with my second girlfriend, and she said it to me. She surprised me. She said, "I love you." And I absolutely wanted to say it back, but I panicked, and I couldn't work out if I was supposed to say "me too" or "you too." Like, they both sort of work in that situation, right? I love you, me too. I love you, you too. Either one of those would have been fine. But I panicked and chose the secret third option, which was not fine. She said, "I love you," and I said, "Me, you." Like I was a caveman who'd just been introduced to the concept of love. Me, you, love. You kill mammoth, me worship sun. 7 months, happy. Then me, you break up. You move Australia, me cry in Primark toilet. It's not just big things like "I love you." I struggle with little moments of emotional honesty. Like, I'm very bad at giving compliments. And there was an incident with my most recent girlfriend where she went to a wedding, one of her friends' weddings, and she got very dressed up for the wedding. And she showed me a photograph of herself dressed up for the wedding. Now, she looked beautiful, stunning, gorgeous. These are all words that I should have used. But I'm very bad at emotional honesty, so what happened was she showed me a photograph of herself dressed up for the wedding. And I said, "Looking cool." Looking cool. Like she could hear the apostrophe. That is not a phrase you use to your girlfriend when she shows you a photograph of herself dressed up for a wedding. That is a phrase you use to a child when they show you that their shoes have wheels. I think that was the beginning of the end, was really. I think when I told her that she was looking cool, she realised that the future of our relationship was looking doubtful. I never said "I love you" to her either, but I think I did. And I know this because at one point she went on holiday without me to Amsterdam. Now, I'm Jewish, which is relevant to the story, I'm not just boasting. I am also boasting a little bit. It's hard to interpret the phrase "God's chosen people." In a humble way. While she was in Amsterdam, she went to Anne Frank's house. And she sent me a Facebook message afterwards saying, "I've just been to Anne Frank's house. although I have such mixed feelings about the Holocaust tourism industry, which is fair enough, right? But you know, on Facebook Messenger, when someone sends you a message, it shows you a preview of the message. Then it's up to you if you open it or not. Now, the preview that I got from her was, I've just been to Anne Frank's house. Although I have such mixed feelings about the Holocaust. And in that moment, I had to decide if I would still want to be with her. If she turned out to be a Holocaust denier. And I decided that I would. I learned that I will sell out my people in a split second if it means that someone will continue to watch Orange is the New Black in bed with me. That should be the slogan for Netflix, I think. It's so good you won't mind about genocide. So I'm single again. I'm dating again, very bad at dating. For me, dating is 50% sweating and 50% trying to casually mention that I've met the author of the Horrible Histories books. And the really sad part is that I haven't. I saw him once at a book signing. I was too afraid to go over. I think you're allowed to exaggerate a little bit on a first date. If I'm still single by the time I'm 30, I'm going to start saying that he patted me on the shoulder. There has to be a perfect amount of involvement that I can pretend to have with the author of the Horrible Histories books to make a girl fall in love with me. I just haven't found it yet. I was on a dating website recently, and a girl on there described herself as being part mermaid, which raised a lot of questions for me. Because a mermaid is already part fish, part human. So did she just mean that she was a mermaid? Or did she mean she was part mermaid? Like part mermaid, part human? Therefore only a quarter fish. If we had kids, would they be an eighth fish and half Jewish? What would we feed them on Fridays? At least we'll have plenty to talk about on our first date. Question 1. What's your favourite film? Question 2. What are we going to feed our Jewish fish babies? Question 3. Did you know that the guy who wrote Horrible Histories is my dad? I think I'm bad at dating because I've got quite low self-esteem. I don't like the way I look, I never have. A lot of it goes back to when I was a kid. Believe it or not, I was very overweight as a child. Because I was overweight, I had very prominent breasts. The kids used to make fun of me. I remember once at school we had swimming practice, and a girl saw me with my shirt off, and she called me Tit Boy. Which just sounds like the worst superhero. Like, what's he gonna do in a crisis? Tit Boy, the school's on fire. Well, call the fire brigade. And by the way, my eyes are up here. I'm not very impressive on a date. A lot of people have like a good job they can boast about. I work full-time in a post office in the centre of Bristol, which for me is actually a massive step up. Like, so before I worked there, I spent 3 years working in 3 different branches of Poundland. I've worked in Poundlands in Exeter, Sheffield and Bristol. And my long-term goal is to get 4 more Poundland jobs in Truro, Doncaster, Norwich and Rotherham. And then I'll be able to plot them on a map and it'll make a disappointed face. The beauty of that system is once the initial face is in place, I can keep getting Poundland jobs up and down the coast, and the frown will just deepen. I don't mind my job, though. One of the good things about it is I can walk to work, but this comes with its own set of hazards. For example, recently I was on my way to work, and a bird managed to shit inside my glasses. Now, they say that getting shat on by a bird is good luck. For the bird to make that shot, it must have been shat on by another bird. My job's not exciting, but it does have adventures. I have my own adventures at work. They're just quite mundane adventures. For example, recently a customer posted a parcel, and I didn't realise till after she'd gone that she'd addressed it to Newport, England. And I started to worry, because I thought if a sort of nationalistic Welsh postman sees this, he might get offended. He might lose the parcel. So I thought what I'll do is I'll cross out England, and I'll write United Kingdom underneath. So I picked up this red felt tip pen that was on my desk, and I crossed out England. The problem was it was an old felt tip, and it was running out. So even after I'd crossed out the word, you could still see England underneath. Only now it also had a perfect St. George's cross. Over the top of it, right? So I started to panic, and I scribbled more and more red pen, and I turned it into fire. And then I drew a dragon next to it. And I wrote Wales underneath. Now I've got a friend from Newport, and I told him what I'd done, thinking that he'd be impressed. And he said, Martin, you do realise that there's a Newport in Essex. Did you check the postcode? And I said, no, I covered it in fire. My job has got more exciting recently. It's got more exciting recently because we've started to work with the Home Office to take the photographs and fingerprints of people moving to the UK from overseas. Now this next bit isn't the funniest bit in the show, but it is the only bit that breaches the Official Secrets Act. I'm not the best comedian on the circuit, but I am the most treasonous. Every year we have to do this for all the new foreign students who start at the University of Bristol. Now these students are overwhelmingly Chinese. That sounded awful. I mean taken as a group, the vast majority. I don't mean individual students. Are so Chinese that I feel overwhelmed. Chinese culture, though, very different to ours, very deferential to authority, which is fine when they can understand the authority, and the authority knows what it's talking about. It's not so good when there's a language barrier, and the authority is me. Now, last year, a Chinese boy, about 18 years old, came into the photo booth, and I asked him to take off his glasses. He misunderstood me and took off his jacket. So I said, no, your glasses. And I waggled my own glasses for emphasis. He misunderstood me again and took off his t-shirt. Now at this point I got very worried. Because we have a webcam in the photo booth that live streams everything we do directly to the Home Office. But it's just video, there's no sound. Which means that the government now has footage of me apparently forcing a young Chinese boy to strip while I waggle my glasses. I don't mind being single. I don't mind it. I think I've always had this idea that life is better when you don't rely on other people. And a lot of it goes back to when I was 13. I went on a youth club trip to Thorpe Park. I'm going to tell a story from my childhood that involves a roller coaster. But please don't think that I'm trying to shoehorn in some bullshit life is like a roller coaster theme to my show. I'm not doing that. I think that's tacky, and I think we're better than that. And also it's not true, life is not like a roller coaster. The only way that life is like a roller coaster is that it was horribly dangerous until the 1950s. But it was the summer that Nemesis Inferno opened at Thorpe Park, and everyone wanted to go on Nemesis Inferno. My friends, they queued all day to go on Nemesis Inferno once. The queue was huge. Meanwhile, I discovered the single rider queue, where they let you jump the queue if you don't mind sitting on your own and filling in the gaps in the roller coaster. Now, I was the only child in this queue. Everyone else was a hardened adult roller coaster enthusiast. The sort of people who treat riding roller coasters like a full-time job. Like, if you were to plot how often these people go on roller coasters on a graph, the shape of that graph would be a really boring roller coaster. There's one man in the queue in particular who stood out. He was a middle-aged man, completely bald, riding Nemesis Inferno over and over again. Now, I don't know if his baldness was genetic, or if he'd shaved his head to maximise his aerial efficiency. But either way, he was clearly the king of the roller coaster. But it's not what he looked like that stood out, it's what he was wearing. This man was wearing a t-shirt, perhaps the most extraordinary t-shirt that I've seen in my life. He was wearing a t-shirt that said, and I quote, "Roller coasters is my stuff." And I've thought about that t-shirt at least once a week for the past 14 years. And at no point have I even come close to working out how it possibly came to exist. Because this was 2003, it wasn't like now, where anyone can go on vistaprint.com, get any stupid t-shirt made to order. Back then, for that t-shirt to exist, it had to be designed, approved, and manufactured by a t-shirt company. Like, someone had to stand up in a board meeting at a t-shirt company and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, there are many types of people in the world. And our market research indicates that for a growing number of these people, roller coasters is their stuff." I looked at this man and I thought, anyone who can ride roller coasters alone on a weekday must be the happiest man in the world. And when I grow up, I want to be just like him. Now, I didn't think the baldness would happen so quickly. That is my fault for not being clear with the universe about what I wanted. I've just realised that I'm wearing a hat, and have therefore ruined the only visual joke in my show. Never mind. The point is, because I didn't rely on other people to validate the experience for me, I got to go on Nemesis Inferno 6 times instead of once. I managed to get bored of Nemesis Inferno. I look like I'm screaming in my souvenir photo, but I am definitely yawning. And the memory of this man, the solitary man on the roller coaster, has stayed with me. And I've tried to live my life in a way that I think he'd approve of. I still enjoy my own company. For example, I love going to the cinema on my own. I hate going with other people. I don't understand the cinema as a social activity. Like, particularly for a date. Like, a date in the cinema is just the two of you sitting in the dark, worrying about where to put your arms. If I wanted that, I would play Twister during a power cut. The last time I tried to see a film with other people, it was a disaster. It was when the new Star Wars film came out. Not the last one, the one before, The Force Awakens. Now, I've never seen any of the Star Wars films, although I have managed to piece the plots together from Happy Meal toys that I found in the street. As far as I can tell, Star Wars is basically like EastEnders, but with lasers instead of economic misery. I've also never seen EastEnders. Everyone was saying how good this film was, and I thought, even though I haven't seen any of the others, I'm going to go and watch it. So I went online, I booked a ticket, I paid a booking fee to make sure I'd get a seat. I was just leaving the house. My housemate stopped me, and they said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to see Star Wars." And they said, "Well, we've already seen it, but we'd like to see it again. Can we come with you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine, but I'm going now." And they said, "Oh, you don't need to leave yet. There'll be like 30, 40 minutes of trailers. We can wait half an hour, then we'll go." So I reluctantly agreed. We left half an hour later. We arrived half an hour after the advertised starting time. I went to pick up my ticket from the box office. They went to buy theirs. Now, they were told that the film had sold out, but there was another performance starting in about 10 minutes. So I said, "Look, I've already paid for mine, so I'm going to go and see this one. You guys see the next one. We'll meet up afterwards." I went into the cinema. I got in just as the opening credits were rolling. Like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it was just appearing on the screen. And I thought, I have timed this perfectly. And then I saw the problem. I was in a pitch black cinema that had only one empty seat. And I had no idea where it was. I started to wander about in the dark looking for it. I thought I found a seat, I sat down. Turns out it wasn't a seat. It was a space for a wheelchair. I got up and tried again. I thought I found an empty seat, I sat down. Turns out it wasn't empty. There was a small child there. At this point, I could feel the people around me getting angry. Because these were hardcore Star Wars fans. Some of these people have been waiting 30 years to see this film. And then some guy just wanders in off the street, half an hour late, hasn't even seen Star Wars. They can tell that, by the way. Just starts wandering about in the dark, getting in the way, sitting on kids and pretending to be disabled. I could not have annoyed these Star Wars fans more if I'd gone in dressed as Captain Picard. And when the opening credits had rolled, I'd stood up and shouted, "Set phasers to Star Wars!" For about 10 minutes, I tried in vain to find my seat, and the whole time my struggle was being projected onto the screen for everyone to see. And I caught a glimpse of my silhouette, and I realised that I had accidentally become a shadow puppet in an educational play about the importance of punctuality. And at that point, the embarrassment got to me. I left. I didn't get to see Star Wars. Now, a lot of people will keep a cinema ticket as a souvenir, maybe of a first date that turned into something serious. I keep my ticket from The Force Awakens to remind myself that other people ruin everything. The first film I ever saw in the cinema was Toy Story. Now here's a scary fact for you. Toy Story came out 22 years ago. Yeah. And if doing this show has taught me one thing, it's that people are more upset when I tell them that than they are by the bit where I talk about the Holocaust. But that is scary, right? Because if Toy Story came out 22 years ago, that means that there are now qualified pilots who think that flying is just a matter of believing in yourself. I have a horrible feeling that one day I'm going to be on a plane, and the last words I ever hear will be a 27-year-old pilot describing my death as falling with style. My other favourite solitary activity is crosswords. I love crosswords. I do a crossword every day at work, and if I finish it, I leave it out on the table in the staff room to assert my dominance. And if I can't finish it, I hide it in my bags. Now, some of you might be thinking there's no way anyone can be that insecure, but bear in mind that I once cooked a second dinner because I didn't want to admit that I'd left the oven on by mistake. And I lived alone at the time. But these unfinished crosswords, they pile up in my rucksack, and then about once a month I have to get rid of them, because they start to hurt my back. And that's always a very dark moment for me, when I realise that I'm literally being crippled by the weight of my own failure. So I've had a bad back for years. I've got a bad back because when I was a teenager, I was in a band, and I used to wear my guitar on the longest possible strap length, because I thought it made me look cool. So I'd be there like, "Hey ladies, look how difficult I'm making this for myself. Aren't you turned on by how impractical this is?" Because rock and roll is meant to be self-destructive, but it's supposed to be drugs and drink, not early onset lumbago. There's no chapter in Axl Rose's autobiography. There's no chapter in Axl Rose's autobiography where he says, "Those early days of Guns N' Roses, they were crazy, man. We were doing shots of whiskey off the bodies of strippers. We were shooting smack into our eyeballs. We were lifting heavy objects without bending our knees." These unfinished crosswords, they pile up. About once a month I have to get rid of them, and I should recycle them, but I don't, I throw them away. Because recycling them would mean leaving them out in the street for everyone to see. And I can't bear the thought of the recycling man seeing my unfinished crosswords and being like, "Hey guys, get a load of this." The man at number 15 can't even think of a 9-letter synonym for the word joy. Wait till I tell the lads at the depot about this. I'm sure they'll be filled with merriment. I don't think 2017 is going to be my year. I'm 27 years old, I'm still very inept as an adult. Like, people my age are buying houses. The other night, I accidentally sat down for dinner with 2 forks, and I decided to just try and make it work. People I went to school with are sat at home. People I went to school with are sat at home thinking, well, if we get this Help to Buy ISA, in 3 years' time, maybe we can get a deposit on a house, maybe tie the mortgage in with the life insurance. In 30 or 40 years, that'll be a nice nest egg for our kids. Meanwhile, I'm sat at home thinking, well, if I push the 2 backs of the forks together in 30 or 40 minutes, I reckon I can have most of this in my mouth. Dinner time is depressing for me anyway. I can't cook, I only eat ready meals. And people often say to me, "Martin, you eat a lot of ready meals." And then they walk away. No. People often say to me, "Martin, you eat a lot of ready meals. What is the ideal number of times to stab the lid of a ready meal before you put it in the microwave?" And I always say the ideal number of times to stab the lid of a ready meal before you put it in the microwave is 8. Once for each angry syllable of the phrase, "I can't believe I live like this." I think that might be the saddest thing anyone's ever said in front of fairy lights. not even the sad bit of this routine. I don't even vary the ready meals I eat. I have spaghetti and meatballs ready meal every night. And the only way that I introduce variety into my diet is by buying that meal from different supermarkets. I've become an expert. Like, I even know how many meatballs are in each supermarket's spaghetti and meatballs ready meal. I know, for example, that a Lidl spaghetti and meatballs ready meal has 8 meatballs, which means that if I'm eating it and I drop one of the meatballs, I know that I've just dropped 12.5% of my day's total happiness. And when you put it that way, eating it off the floor doesn't seem so bad. I always have garlic bread with the ready meals. I keep things 100% Italian. I have the diet of a mafia hitman who's been hired to kill himself slowly. I was in Lidl recently and I was buying 3 spaghetti meatballs ready meals and 4 cans of Budweiser, which in Lidl I believe is some sort of a meal deal. You don't get a discount at the time, but you save money in the long run on all the expenses associated with living past 50. But I got to the checkout with my 3 spaghetti meatballs ready meals and my 4 cans of Budweiser, and the cashier asked me for ID. Now, I've thought about this a lot ever since, and I still can't work out if she was IDing me to see if I was old enough to buy the beer, or to see if I was still young enough to turn things around. The only thing I eat besides ready meals is takeaway pizza from our local pizza place, Dominic's Pizza, who are definitely getting sued at some point. Now, I love Dominic's Pizza for 2 reasons. First of all, it's delicious. And secondly, once when I was in there, I was 40p short on the pizza that I wanted. And they said that I could bring it in next time. And that is the closest I've ever come to having a credit rating. About 3 months ago, Dominic's Pizza closed for the whole of Ramadan. Now, I was unaware that they were doing this, and I got home one night from work at about 6, half 6, and I really wanted a pizza. So I called Dominic's Pizza, no answer. I thought, right, that's weird, maybe they're busy. I'll give them another chance. I made a cup of tea, I sat down. About half an hour later, I tried again, still no answer. I thought, right, that's weird, maybe they're closed, but I don't want to miss out. I'll give them one more chance. So I put on a film. I got really into the film, ended up watching the whole thing. By the time it had finished, it's about 8:30. I still haven't eaten, I'm very hungry. I called Dominic's Pizza again, no answer. I thought, right, well, they're almost certainly closed, but as they're just round the corner, I'm going to go and see what's going on. So I left the house, I went over to Dominic's Pizza. Sure enough, there's a sign on the door saying, sorry, we're closed for Ramadan. I was disappointed, but I thought, fair enough. Most of their staff are Muslim. If you're fasting all day, you don't want to be working with food, I get that. I turned around, I walked home. As I turned the corner into my street, I saw the sun was setting behind my house. And in that moment, I realised that I had accidentally observed Ramadan. I talk about my life almost exclusively in terms of failure. But the truth is, I do the things I do because I enjoy them. Right? I eat ready meals, I go to the cinema on my own, because these things make me happy. I only feel like a failure when I make the mistake of trying to see my life through someone else's eyes, trying to second guess how I must look to them. And I fell into this trap recently. My ex-girlfriend came back from Australia, the one that I said me, you to. Now, she used to live in my house before I lived there, and she dropped by one day unexpectedly to pick up some post. And she found me on a weekday in my pyjamas with a massive unkempt beard, drinking Vimto out of a Minnie Mouse mug, and wearing a t-shirt that said "Cry Baby." Now that is actually a type of guitar pedal. It's actually a very cool t-shirt. But from her point of view, it must have looked like I'd been living this way for so long that I'd started to produce my own merchandise. And I wasn't even wearing my best pyjamas, I was wearing my second best pair of pyjamas. And it's weird how much that bothers me. Like if I'd been wearing my best pyjamas, my ex would have been like, "Ooh, red tartan on a Tuesday." Well, I guess Martin's a millionaire now. The truth is, she's a lovely person. She was probably just happy to see me. But I kept replaying this meeting over and over in my mind and embellishing it and making it worse. So my memory of the incident is just me crying naked on the floor. Like a bearded Natalie Imbruglia. My ex-girlfriend, 12 feet tall, filming it on her phone. Like a massive Natalie Imbruglia. Now my normal reaction to something like this would be to take a bunch of food up to my room, spend the day wallowing in self-pity, creating that weird substance that you get when you mix crumbs with tears. It doesn't have a real name, but I call it bed paste. But I couldn't do that, right? I had a prior engagement that day. I do like a comedy workshop with some other stand-ups where we meet up and discuss new material. I went to that. I told them what had happened. They laughed. And I felt better, right? By sharing this with other people, it went from being something unpleasant to being something funny. And it made me realise that no matter how much I try and see myself as this solitary, self-sufficient person, the truth is that I rely on other people all the time. I was home recently visiting my parents, and I went through a drawer of old stuff, and I found my souvenir photo from that day at Thorpe Park. Now on the left of the photo was me, scream yawning like a pro, my prominent breasts flapping in the wind. And on the right of the photo was the bald man, the king of the roller coaster, my model of self-sufficiency. And I looked closely at this photo, and I realised that this man that I've looked up to and idolised most of my life definitely had his hand on my knee. Now he might have been trying to steady himself against the G-force of Nemesis Inferno, but the look on his face didn't say, "I'm scared, hold me." The look on his face said, "I'm gonna grab me some knee, because there are no rules in the sky." I guess what I'm trying to say is that life sort of like a roller coaster, isn't it? Now you can go through life in the single rider queue if you want. You might have more fun, you might have less responsibility, you might shield yourself from some of the pain that comes from letting other people get close to you. But if you're going to live that way, you better make sure that you have knees of steel. Because that queue is full of creeps. And there are no rules in the sky. Now I'm not going to stop doing the things that I do. I'm going to continue to enjoy my own company. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I have learned that it's important sometimes to get out of your room, get out of the house, spend some time with other people. I guess what I'm trying to say is that being alone and being with other people is my stuff. And the next time an ex-girlfriend stops by my house unexpectedly, I probably will be wearing pyjamas. I probably will be drinking Vimto. But now, thanks to Vistaprint.com, I will at least be wearing a better t-shirt. That's my show, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. do regret writing a show that means I have to wear 2 layers every single time. Anyway, we're going to have a quick break now. Come back later for Becky. Thank you so much.